So now that you have the walk cycle down, let's go ahead and let's put that walk cycle into an action. If you aren't familiar with that term, Anime Studio uses this window here called Actions, and it does exactly that. It stores short clips of animation that can be inserted into this main timeline here and reused over and over and over again. So you can have an action for blink, for sad face, for walk cycle, for run cycle, for dancing. You can have all sorts of actions, and that just helps you smoothly transition from one animation to another, and it's already pre-built right here. So what happens if you already created your animation on a main timeline? Well, you can still copy and paste all of those layers into your action window. So let's go ahead and do that. So first off, the most important thing that you need to do is you need to open your window and go to Actions, so Control K on the keyboard. Okay, so now that you have your actions open, you're going to click on this button up here. This is your insert reference. This will create your new action. So we'll go ahead and we'll call this walk. Okay, let's close that window. Okay, so now that we are in our walk action, you see down here on the main timeline, it changed colors. It changed to red. Well, this helps you signify that Anime Studio is now in its action timeline. If we double click on the main line, this takes us back to our main timeline. As you can see there, it's all cleared out. Double click again on the action, walk, and it takes you back into the red action timeline. So let's go back to the main timeline. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to copy all of these keyframes onto our walk timeline for our action. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight the channels. This is probably the easiest way to do it. So I'm going to click, and then I'm going to hold shift and click. And I'm going to hit Control C. So that's just going to copy what I have there. I'm going to go back to my walk, and I'm going to go back to frame 0. It's kind of important. And then I'm going to do Control V. Now I'm going to show you why, if I didn't go to frame 0, what happens. So I'm going to hit Control V. And as you can see there, it's going to create this extra keyframe right there in the center. And that extra keyframe is for a standing position, so it's not going to loop perfectly. So if I hit play, you're going to see it's going to pop. And we don't want it to do that. So I'm going to hit Control Z. So I'm going to go back to my frame 0, and I'm going to do Control V. And that's going to insert it properly there. Okay, so as you can see there, it copied and pasted in his arms and his legs, but his head is not moving. Well, that's because that was in a separate layer than our bone layer. So we're going to go back into the main timeline, and we're going to go to our mouth. And as you can see there, we have our mouth. So I'm just going to copy that main channel right there. I'm going to go back to walk. I'm going to go to frame 0. I'm going to paste that. I'm going to go back into the main line. I'm going to go to the eyebrows. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back into walk. Frame 0, paste that. And I'm going to go back to his eyes, double click, make sure I'm in my main line. I'm going to hit Control C, and I'm going to paste it with Control V. Okay? So now when I go back to my walk action and I hit play, you can see that I have that whole animation inside this action window. If I go back to my main timeline and I play that, you can see it's the exact same animation. So let's go ahead, and because this is our main timeline, this is our main spot where we will be creating our animation, let's go ahead and let's delete what we have here. So I'm going to go back up to my main layer right here, purple, that holds everything, all of these sub layers. I'm going to go to my animation, clear animation from layer. And it's going to say, do you want to delete everything and the sub layers too? Yes. Okay, now what? I just deleted everything. Well, that's okay because we created an action with this animation already inside of it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our main timeline, and let's create a little animation here. So in order to insert your actions, so let's say you had an animation that you want to go from like a walk cycle to a run cycle. This is where actions are really going to help you out. But instead of doing a run cycle, I'm simply going to have this character walk across the screen. There's going to be like a little bug or something that he's walking up to. He steps on it and he squishes it. He thinks it's dead, and will change his face and everything to like a frowning face. But when he lifts up his leg, the little bug, or it's going to be a little ball that we're going to have, comes alive, and he's raised from the dead, and he bounces alongside of the character, and they stroll off all nice and happy. Okay, so that's basically what we're going to do for this animation. So first off, what we need to do is we're going to right click our walk action. Now what we're going to do is we're going to insert a reference. So we're going to go to frame 1 right here, and we're going to insert this reference for this walk cycle. Now I have this on a continuous loop, and I showed you how to do that in the previous tutorial, so let's go ahead and play this out. And as you can see there, he's walking along and he's all nice and happy and everything's great. Well, awesome. Let's go ahead and real quick here, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go ahead and let's create our, I'll call it a bug, but literally it's just a green ball. And I'm going to create that ball, and I'm just going to put it off here to the side. Okay. Now I'm going to go back into my purple walk cycle here, and I'm going to take this out to about frame 60. Okay. So he's going to be walking, and then I want him to squish this off to the side here when it comes to the middle of the screen, and I want him to stop at frame 72. So in order to stop your continuing cycle of your walk animation, you're going to hit Control F on the keyboard. And what this is going to do, it's going to freeze all of the poses. But now I want you to watch something as I do this. So I'm going to go to 30. I'm going to play this out. His body stops, but his head keeps on going. And that's because that's on a separate layer with its own separate keyframes. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go to his mouth. I'm going to hit Control F. Eyebrows, Control F, and eyes, Control F. Okay, so now when he stops, everything should stop. And it does. Awesome. Okay. So now what we're going to do next is we're going to plan what we want his position to look like at frame 72. So he's going to come to a stop, and we just want to have him in a standing position. So we froze everything, and now it's going to go to this standing position. So I'm going to go back to my bone layer right here. I'm going to turn on my bones, and I'm just going to have his arms at his side, his hands down, his feet down. Let's zoom in a little bit there and just adjust that. Okay, so right about here, he realized that he squished something. Okay. Something that would probably be good is right here as well. You can see his arms swing back and forth. So his arm's swinging back right about here. Let's go ahead and let's move his arm up too so that his arm and legs match. So let's go ahead and let's move his arm forward a little bit as well. In fact, let's go ahead and let's move his leg back. So his leg, we're going to take and we're going to translate it. And again, I showed you how to do this in the previous tutorial. And we're going to take his bone right here for the target bone. We're just going to slide that back across. We're going to do the same. We're going to move the bone forward. We're going to take his leg, and we're going to slide that back across there. Probably not so far away because that looks a little weird. And we will straighten that leg out just a little bit right there. Okay, now with his arm, we'll do the same. Make sure it matches his leg there since we just moved that. And if you need to, what you can do is you can use your original reference of the character. So actually, I had his legs way too far apart. Let's go ahead. I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to turn on my onion skin, and I'm just going to highlight that first part there. Oop, and I have it on relative onion skinning. I don't want to do that. I want to take my relative frames off, and I just want it so I can see exactly where those legs were at before. And I'm just going to move his leg to about there, thus moving his leg there, and this leg there, to move this leg right there. And I'm going to bring that down to where it was before, or where it should be, as far as his heels. He also had a bouncing motion, so I think when we left it off, he was bouncing up. So we'll go ahead and we'll move him down. Not a lot though, because we don't want his legs to bend. And that looks pretty good. It doesn't need to be exactly like it was on frame 0, so that's perfectly fine right there. So he's walking, and then he squishes something right about here. And what we'll do is we'll have his foot come down really quick. We'll just go, and it'll squish something. Okay, so as you can see there, his legs kind of do a sliding motion. And that looks a little weird, huh? So what we're going to do is we're going to actually we're going to let that leg slide a little bit. We'll get away with that. But what we need to do is we still need to give this leg kind of a passing position so it doesn't just kind of slide into place there as well. So kind of following what we did before with our passing position, we're going to lift this leg up just a little bit. And that just kind of brings him into place there. So if you need to, it's actually best to use some reference lines. So let's go ahead and let's keep his feet where they should be. So actually right there, let's go ahead and let's bring that leg down just a little bit more. Let's keep everything level there. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then with his other leg, you can see there, his foot still kind of has an interesting motion there. So we'll go ahead and we'll pick up his leg just a little bit. And following this pickup, we'll move his toe out a little bit. Okay. So we won't focus too much on that. What I'm basically trying to show you is how you can take and you can change your animation on a dime. And then we can use that walk cycle again to get this animation going again, right where we had it. And that's how you can use these types of situations. So we'll go ahead, we'll play this out. So he's walking, and he stops because he squishes something with his foot. So let's go ahead and let's bring in our little ball animation. And let's go ahead and let's put it under his foot right here. So let's go back to the bug, or the ball, or whatever the heck it is. And what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to go back to frame 0, and I'm going to shrink this down a little bit, and I'm going to try to line it up with his foot of where I think his foot will be going. But I just want to make sure it's not too big and not too small. So I'm just shrinking that down just a little bit there. Right there on frame 0. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to bring that ball over underneath of his foot. And what I want to do actually is I want to take his foot and I want to make it just a little bit higher than it was before. So he's going to come down on his foot with a lot more strength than he did before. And he's going to squish the heck out of this little ball thing. Okay, so now we're going to bring over the ball. So I'm going to do a transform layer, but what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go back to frame 0 and I'm going to set my origin point to be in the middle of that ball so that we can use a little bit more flexibility there. Okay, so it comes right underneath of that foot. And again, like I said, what we can do is we can take and we can move this side up so that it's a straight line. So that's good right there. So he's walking along and squish. He squishes it. So let's go ahead and right there we'll make it look squished. So what we'll do right before that is, because now what we're going to do point animation, is I'm going to copy all of my points. So I'm going to hit Control F to copy all of those points, to freeze that pose, and then to squish this down. Okay, and it doesn't have to look great either. And one of the things I forgot to copy just now is my curves. So what we just created is we created an extra frame right here for our curvature tool. So we need to create and copy those curves as well. Okay, so it goes. Now as you can see here, that probably wasn't a good idea, but we'll have to work with it. But his foot is going to slide back to that position now. And now that I think about it, I don't really know why I did that, but we will go ahead and we'll still use it. So we just got to animate this little squished ball with his foot. So we'll just have it to where it slides right underneath of his foot. And this part doesn't need to be perfect because I'm basically just showing you how this works. So he squishes it with his foot and he's like, oh no. So we got to give him some sort of reaction now. So let me go ahead and let's just close that actions panel there. Okay, so he was walking and he squished whatever that was. And what we can do is we can give him some sort of face, so when he squishes it, probably like a little bit after he realizes it, and so we can do a little bit of animation on his face. This isn't a really built for animation quite yet. At least I hadn't built it for animation. So his face can automatically go into a frowny face. He's like walking. He's like, oh shoot, I just did something. And then his eyebrows, we can have it to where they go up. And then they frown. If we wanted to, we can make it to where his eyes go wide or something. So he is walking along. Go to his eyes, and his eyes maybe get big. Oops, I don't want to do it from the... There we go. I'm trying to drag it out from the center, not from the side there. So he's walking and his eyes, maybe before he gets a frowny face, we keep that pose. So what we'll do is we'll hit Control F on his mouth. And then his eyes, we'll hit Control F. And we'll drag out that pose for till 66 frames. I'll do the same for the eyebrows. And then I'll go to the mouth and I'll do the same thing. So right here, he just hits it and he's just surprised and he's like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? And then we can have the character. We can have him right about here at 78. We can have him look down. So what we'll do is we'll freeze all of these frames right here, these keyframes for the mouth, the eyebrow, and the eyes. And then we're going to have it so where the character, he looks down. Probably about frame 90. So this pose will freeze probably about 84. And then he'll look down at frame 90. And as you can see there, I don't have my character set up for smart bones because I haven't actually set him up for these types of actions yet. This was just something I came up with at a spur of the moment here. So we can just have him looking down. And as he's looking down, he can probably kind of be inquisitive. So he can have his hand up to his mouth, and then his other hand can just be kind of hanging there. Oops. And then what we can do is we can lift up his leg. So we'll go ahead and we'll have him bend down. We'll hit Control F to freeze all of our bones, so to freeze this whole pose. And then we can have him lift up his leg to see what the heck he just hit, what he just squished. We'll try to keep that separate out of the way so you can see what's going on there. And he sees this little squished thing. And so what we can do is we can go ahead and we can change his expression to sad. So again, you can even set up actions for this, for his expression. You can make it sad, or you can set up in Smart Bones. I haven't done either, so we're going to have to do this the difficult way. So what we can do is just simply animate it with point animation. So now he's like, oh gosh, I feel terrible. I just squished this little green thing. And then his eyes are going to get really sad. So again, remember to set up all your freezing points, because before you go into your next action, you got to make sure you change everything. And that looks a little fake. So what we'll do is we'll bring in that action a little bit quicker for his mouth and his eyes. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. So right here, he's walking, he steps on it, and he's like, oh, shoot. And then what we can do is we can bring this little guy to life. So we'll go back to our little bug ball thing, and right about here at frame 108, we can have him pop up just like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to have him pop up by copying the original keyframes. So I believe it was, I believe it was these ones right here. So we'll copy and we'll paste those. Now what that did is that copied and it pasted, but it changed his position. So what we need to do is we also need to make sure that we keep our original spot here. So I'll copy just this keyframe right here, keep it there, and then that should also be in the same position. Okay. So he lifts his foot up and the ball bounces and it comes back to life. And now he's going to be all happy again. So what we'll do is we'll freeze this from 114 and we'll freeze it from this keyframe here. That whole, this is his mouth right now, that whole little frown. And we'll take his eyebrows and we'll do the exact same thing. We'll bring it back at 114. Because right here at 120, we will make this same, where is it? Where he's happy? There it is, right there. So frame 60. So everything on frame 60 is where we're going to bring back his happiness. So back to his eyebrows, back to his mouth, and I think I even left his eyes bigger. So what we'll do is we'll have to bring his eyes back to the same size. And as you can see there, it changed from all this time because we didn't set that frozen keyframe, and that's very important, like I said. So what we'll do is we'll make sure it's right there at 114, and then his eyes go back down for whatever reason. That's probably not going to work, but yeah, that's not going to work. So what I should have done is when his eyes go wide, he's like, and then probably right about here. Yeah, so actually right about here where his eyes are wide, his eyes should go back. I'll just delete that. His eyes should just go back to normal right about here. And then we'll delete that. Okay, so everything's back to normal. He lifts up his leg. And that is way too soon. So he lifts up his leg, it pops up. But his emotions move way too fast. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take those emotions, we're going to have to move them back just a little bit more. So you can see as an audience, I think the principle of animation is called staging, but so you can see as an audience what the heck is going on here. So he squished this ball thing, and you don't want him to change expressions so quickly. We'll probably have him do it at like frame 144. So we'll go back to the mouth, and all we're going to do is we're just going to move this. So right here he's frowning, and then he's going to be happy again. We're going to go back to the eyebrows. The eyebrows, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take and we're just going to move that so that the end result right there is him being happy. Because what we'll do is we'll then have the ball. We'll go back to the ball or the bug. I got to figure out what the heck I'm going to call this thing. I'll just call it the ball. Even though my layer name says something differently. And I'm just going to have him, I don't know, maybe move to the side a little bit. And because he's moving a little bit closer to the camera, we'll have that get just a little bit bigger. And again, because we just created a new keyframe, we got to make sure we freeze the old keyframe. So we'll just make sure we grab this one and we go back to here. Okay, so now the ball gets bigger. And then basically what we're going to do from there is we're just going to insert our action again. So he's going to go back into a happy walk, and then this little guy is going to bounce along right beside him. So what we'll do is we'll go back to our actions, our window, actions. Make sure we're on the bone layer. I got scared for a second there. I thought I lost my my walk cycle. Okay, so in order to make sure you're on the right one, like I was in bug, I never created an action, so it's not going to show one. So I got to go to purple side. And I'm going to go back into the walk cycle here. And I'm going to have him go exactly to where he was before. So we'll go ahead and we'll insert another reference. So he'll go from this to that. So, and obviously we're going to have to do the in-betweens for that because that obviously doesn't work very well. And as you can see there, there's actually a lot of mistakes. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead, we'll just delete that action real quick. And when the ball moves over to the side, he gets happy. Right here, I'm going to freeze this whole pose. So I'm going to do Control F on the keyboard. And that way there's no sliding slow movements from this position here. And right about 168, he's going to go back to a walk. And I just want to give myself enough time right here in between for my in-betweens to make that smooth transition. So I'll do right click and I'll do insert reference. And I don't know why, but it keeps on wanting to add these additional keyframes right there, which I don't want. Okay, so as you can see there, that looks a little weird. But what we'll have to do is we will have to work with it. So we basically want to get his positioning back to this position right here so everything transitions smoothly. This is going to be a little bit difficult. So what we'll do here is we'll go back to our bones. We'll make this foot touch back down. Bring back our lines so we can see where we're at here. So what I need to do is I need to have it to where this is gonna be a little bit tricky. So I need to have it to where this foot, it's probably gonna have to slide again, this foot, but that's okay. We'll make it work. So we gotta have it to where it plants back down, and it's gonna want to push down. I don't want it to push through the ground there. Oops, turn off my onion skin. So what I need to do, what I need to make sure I quickly do, is I bring down the foot a lot quicker. That foot needs to come down almost immediately, because then this foot needs to pick up to carry the rest of the, this foot needs to carry the weight of this foot, because we need to then put it back into a passing position. And that doesn't really work. That looks weird. But we'll make it work. So I'm going to erase my line real quick. And what we might have to do, actually that might transition pretty smoothly. Let's check it out real quick. So as you can see there was a little bit of a head jiggle. So it was copying a extra keyframe on all of my layers there. So that should be more smooth. And okay, so what I need to do is I just need to get rid of those. What it was doing is it was copying an additional keyframe in front of the cycle there, so it wasn't transitioning smoothly. It was just popping. Okay, awesome. So everything is good to go there. His eyes, shoot, his eyes are moving. So what we did need to do is grab our previous actions and just copy those keyframes before the main action. The main action that I'm referring to is the walk cycle. So it's transitions smoothly. Perfect. Okay. All right, and everything looks good. And so what we're just going to do is we're just going to bring our little ball to life. We'll give this a little bit more room to work with. We'll do 312. And we'll have this little ball. He rolls off to the side. And then as he begins walking, we'll have our little ball bounce up and down. So I'm going to create a keyframe. I'm going to drag this up a little bit so you can see. but I have my layer translation. And I'll have it when he's doing his passing position, the ball's going up. And then when he's doing his contact position, the ball's coming back down. And we'll just put the ball itself on a cycle. And I'm going to do it on a relative cycle of 11 keyframes. All right, there we go. And that is how you are going to use your actions and your animation timeline together. So that's the difference between the two. Is the action is basically where you can store all of your animation, whereas the main timeline is where you'll be using all of that final animation. So that little ball bounce and everything, that could be a little bit better and improved. A lot of things could be improved, but this is just to show you how everything will work. So you don't have to use this exact animation nor this rig, because as you can see there, it wasn't meant to be bent right there. But this is just to show you a really good idea of the difference between your main timeline versus your action. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I will see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment to let me know what you'd like to see in other videos. Also, be sure to join the Anime Studio Pros Facebook group, a group I created for you to learn, share, and collaborate with other Anime Studio animators. I'll see you later.